And welcome back to Survivor 46 and 46. This is day 43. And yes, Gabler just won Survivor 43 in another blowout. It's the third blowout in a row. Actually, well, if you really want to, it's the fourth blowout in a row that we get in the 40s. But third in the new era. I know we all have opinions on how that went down. But today I'm joined once again by Alex, who is making a return from the Palau pod. 33 days ago or something like that. And we're joined by Luke from Idled Out. And Luke, we'll start with you. When 43 aired, what was your feeling going into it based off of what you had just seen 41 and 42? Were you expecting, what were you hoping for, I guess?
Well, I think we were all kind of sick of some of the new era budget cuts and stuff, and the kind of wacky twists. So I personally was hoping for them to kind of scale some of that stuff back, and I think for the most part they did. I think the casting continued to be really good, and yeah, I was really excited for more Survivor. What can I say?
And what were you hoping specifically to not happen this time around? I am looking for an actual answer, but
well, I mean, we're all thinking of the hourglass, right?
Okay.
Does anyone but Erica like that?
I don't believe so. And Alex, Luke brought up the casting and a lot of these twists that we're now 3 seasons in. I understand that a lot of people have issues with 41 through 46. When you were going into 43, though, had it jumped the shark yet, or were you still on board with some of the more positive thoughts that were being portrayed about the show at that point?
So at the point that I started watching Survivor 43, the first season I watched live was 41, and I hadn't seen anything much before that, except for a couple of the really, really old seasons, Borneo, Australia, and all that. So I hadn't gotten that gradual build up to where the new era came. So I watched 41 for the first time and I was kind of like, okay, there's just a lot going on. That's just kind of how it is. Then I slowly started to realize, beforehand there was a lot less. They were throwing a lot less at the wall. It was still complicated, but there wasn't all this much going on. And I did realize when watching 43, I was like, okay, things are a lot more subtle now. They're not throwing in a new twist every single episode, or anything like that. And there's not even a lot of advantages this season. The only one we have is the knowledge is power, which is not even really a factor at all.
I will say this: one of the fun things that I saw they did this year was the editing tricks that they would do. Specifically, I'm looking at the Jesse checklist scene. Just as a whole, that's something that we really have never seen before. And I do feel like they're still in this process of they're trying to figure out what is working and what doesn't. They know what doesn't work now based off of fan reaction to 41 and 42. But because 42 was, looked at as very good, I feel like this season, okay, let's get rid of this and let's just focus on the cast. And I feel like 43 kind of runs into the Edge of Extinction problem. See, as a season, as a problem of it comes right after David versus Goliath. It has a twist that folks are not the biggest fan of, and so people just say, "Oh yeah, it's the Rick Devens show." And that's all it is. I feel like they do the same thing with 43. It's it's the Jesse show, and that's it. I don't buy that. I feel like there are a fair few compelling characters on Edge of Extinction and here. And I feel like the reason, and we're just going to start with, or we're going to just go right into this one. I feel like the reason that this season is not looked as highly as it might be is because of the win. Luke, thoughts on Mike Gabler as the player? And do you think it's fair, just in the history of Survivor, for people to label a season a bad season because of the winner? How do you see that?
Well, people are it's the most memorable part of most seasons is the winner, and that ends up being what it's defined by. And I totally understand anyone who does not like Mike Gabler's win. I think that's a perfectly legitimate opinion to have. Me personally, I will always root for the funniest possible thing to happen, and Gabler winning over Cassidy was the funniest possible thing that could happen, and over Jesse, and over Carla, and over Cody. So yeah, I mean, I like Gabler. I mean, he's one of the best characters of the new era, in my opinion, and it's so funny that he won.
Alex, you're the truther. Just
Okay.
go.
Okay, so here's the deal. I did not really think that Gabler was going to win the first time I watched it. Actually, what happened was because I make a draft with my girlfriend when I watch the season, and we start after the first episode as opposed to preseason because we're not really big into like preseason stuff. And so we get down to the draft. It's done where you have to like pick a woman, then a man, then a woman, then a man, stuff like that. So we get down to the bottom. I have the last pick. I have to pick between Gabler and Geo. And I'm like, you know what?
I have a feeling about this Gabler.
I got this guy. I got this guy.
This man's going places.
He may have had a terrible first episode, but I'm still going to pick him, and it paid off really well. And in this rewatch that I did, there's a lot of moments where like Gabler really does have a good pulse on exactly what he needs to do every round, even if it is just, hey, I'm going to stay back. I'm going to let these other big guys take care of business because they could be taken care of later. And he literally says at final 6 or something that he wants to go to the end with Cassidy and Owen, and he makes that happen.
Yeah.
So
there
we go.
Go ahead, Luke.
One thing about Gabler too is that before the season aired, his audition tape was discovered on YouTube, and so for Joe Schmo, on Facebook's not watching that, but for those of us who are like terminally online in the Survivor space, like we had all seen that. And that, it's crazy. He's like playing air guitar and hanging out with goats. And that really primed us before the season even started to just kind of dismiss him as a player and kind of just think of him as like a kooky old man. And, the first episode kind of reinforces that. But yeah, I do think before the season even started, we were all, the Survivor fan community online kind of had already dismissed this guy as not a serious person.
Yeah, and I try to stay away from pregame press. It's very hard post 40 to do that, to the point where I just say, screw it, I'm just going to read everyone's bio and I'm going to pick my my winner based off of who their favorite Survivor players are and who they want to base their game off of. With Gabler, I'm also in a fantasy league, and a lot of people were big on him because it seemed like he was going to be a character. And one of y'all mentioned, I think it was Luke, that he was such a great character this season. And it reminds me of Tony in Cagayan, which when I talked about Cagayan 2 weeks ago, I said, Tony is a great character in this season, not a great winner. He becomes a great winner, in my opinion, in Winners at War. I think that characters can win the game. We've seen it plenty of times. And this is where I go into the whole resume fallacy of this era of Survivor that's slowly starting to go away. Because once again, the people that are claiming resumes and big moves and everything, they are not the ones that get to the end, and the ones that do get to the end, they're not the ones that are winning. The GOAT strategy has a higher statistical, chance of winning the game than someone that is out there consistently making all the big moves. Off the top of my head, I can name 2, and one of them played for 12 days. So there's really only one person that has been able to use the big move strategy and win the game. Luke, why do you think that even in 43, people have this perception that they have to be out there making crazy moves every single round? They have to have the biggest resume among everybody else to win the game, when these are super fans. They should know what it takes to actually win the game. Why do you think this is still clouding the game, I guess?
I think, well, I mean, the show's at its, the show tells us that big moves are necessary. And I do think to some extent, like, I hate the resume, when people say I need something on my resume. But I do think you need something on your resume. You can't just turn in like the blank sheet of paper like Owen did. You know, I mean, everyone on that jury, I think, liked or loved Owen personally, but you know, they need something. And I don't even think it's about making big moves. It's about articulating them at the end. And you watch this season, Gabler has a great final tribal, at least from what we saw, because he's able to articulate, he answers every question well, and he says, here are the inflection points of the season and how I was involved. The Ellie boot is like what he hangs his hat on, and that changed the whole course of the season. So, I guess to get back to your point, the show tells us that you need resumes, but I think you do need something on there.
You do. And this is one of the first times that someone is able to say something that they did pre-merge as their defining move outside of, getting rid of Jesse at the end, where that is the move that they're like, this was me. My big move was getting rid of Ellie. It's like, who's Ellie? Ellie was my winner pick, so like I know Ellie. Getting rid of Ellie. And I feel like, yes, Owen didn't have that. I felt like Cassidy was saying a lot, but I just watching how the edit was, like at Final Tribal, how when Gabler would answer questions, he was getting a lot of laughs. It came off as more engaging with them. I do feel like in that Final Three situation, based off of what we are seeing, obviously I can see how he won the game, because that is the point, is to get to the end and defend your game. Alex, if we want to rewind a little bit, were there any front runners in your head outside of, I'm assuming Jesse, but were there any front runners in your head as the game was progressing? And was Gabler ever one of those front runners to you? Did you ever see like there's this path, or they're showing this in the edit, which means this?
Mm-hmm. So I'm very like statistical when I'm thinking of these things, because I just like how like numbers work in my head. And
my Bible, so.
And at a certain point, I think I started realizing, oh wait, not only is Gabler not like getting targeted, he's not getting any votes either. No one's even like throwing a stray on him. He's not even getting brought up as a target, whereas other people are saying like Cody and Jesse are like calling the shots, like we got to get Carla out of here, we got to get Cassidy out of here, and like Gabler's name's not even being brought up. And I feel like that may have made him like fly under the radar, like so to the fans as well. People like just kind of like forgot he was there, but it's because he was so well like insulated. But like to go back to your question, I think that like when I was first watching the season, I was kind of thinking like Jesse was more of the quieter player and Cody was the like louder player, and he was like probably the one out front. I don't think it was really until they did that whole thing about like Jesse like tying up all the loose ends of the Noel boots and having like the checklist. I was like, oh shoot, hold on. I think Jesse's like got something. And then Jesse boots Cody. I'm like, hold
this
up.
man is, yeah. And I brought this up to Luke earlier, and I guess I can go down this path for a second. I was at a watch party for this, and off to the side sits Billy Garcia from Cook Islands. And I'm just sitting there. I go up and talk to him as if he's just another person, because he is just like any other player.
Right.
And at one point he says, yeah, I think Gabler's going to win this. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think Jesse might have this. It's like, well, hey, that I actually played Survivor. I'm like, I know who you are. Come on, I know who you are. So he was like, I will buy you a shot if Gabler wins. And I'm like, and I'll buy you a shot if he doesn't win. And in the process, we just started taking shots throughout the night. Anyway, Gabler wins, and that place loses their collective minds. They could not believe what they were seeing, much like Cassidy and Owen.
That was the loudest. That was the loudest I have cheered for a winner.
Oh wow!
With Gabler. Again,
can't be me. But hold on, Alex. And so I get on my Snap story. I have my arm around Billy Garcia, and we were just drunkenly talking to anyone that's following me on Snapchat, saying it's Billy Garcia's fault that Gabler won, because he told me 2 hours ago that was going to happen. Alex, go ahead, and I want to continue.
I forget what the point I was trying to make, but I was saying that was like the loudest I had cheered for a winner, partially because, like Luke said, of the funny factor of like like him winning. I think I was texting a friend at the time, and he was like, "Oh, Cassidy's got this. It's not even going to be close, right?" And then I'm like, "No, hold on, Gaylor's got this." And then Gabler wins, and he's like, "Gabler's the worst winner ever. This is ridiculous. I can't believe that." I'm like, "All right, well."
And that's where I have an issue with the larger fan base, and it's so funny because the Facebook moms, they loved Xander against Erica, even though I felt like Erica did way better than Xander. Whatever. The winner is the winner. Fine.
Yeah.
The Facebook moms loved Jonathan, and they didn't like Marianne. This season, the Facebook moms loved Gabler, even though I would say that Gabler and Erica kind of did the same thing. But the Facebook moms love him, and they hate Erica. Meanwhile, the Twitter fans loved Cassidy.
Right.
And they put her on this pedestal of all-time Rob goddess or whatever. For me, she's a fine loser. Like she's not this I can't believe she lost thing. Luke, where do you think this comes from? The fact that they've now put Cassidy in this category that people like maybe Dom are in or things like that, where they feel like, oh man, that is actual highway robbery. Even though I don't think Dom is, I don't think anyone is, but.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get into any political stuff.
No, we can keep it. Yeah, it doesn't have to be political.
I don't know. I don't think Cassidy is some like horribly robbed player. I think, I mean, had Cassidy won, who even remembers 43? I mean, it's probably like a bottom tier season. Some people would say it still is. But I mean, Gabler winning is so much more memorable than Cassidy winning. I think it was just, we were at the final three. It was a Gabon tier final three where none of them really deserved to take it. And, the 50-something-year-old guy pulled it out somehow against players who maybe had more agency. I don't know.
No, that's, I was hoping that one of y'all would bring up Gabon, because I had Gabon in my head watching this final three, even though I felt like this final three performed better at Final Tribal, because I think that Susie performs the best in the Gabon Final Tribal because Sugar's not trying, and Dr. Bob is basically saying, yeah, I followed Sugar. Here, everyone is able to articulate their own games, and they're all answering the questions well enough that the jury seems to be vibing with them. But yes, I do like that comparison. Alex, for you, as a Gabler person, but did you see merit to a Cassidy or even Owen win here, or did you feel like, okay, once Jesse's gone, it has to be Gabler, right?
I mean, I see no real scenario where Owen wins. Like, I love the guy. He's a great person on the show, but like, he was just blindsided constantly. So I don't think there's a real situation where he wins. For Cassidy, it's interesting because I feel like the edit definitely tries to portray her as this like strategic mastermind, was like always on the right side of the vote. And like to give her game credit, she definitely was, and she like evaded getting voted out a good number of times. But at the same time, there's a couple times in the edit where she claims things that just like aren't really true. And the biggest one is like in this finale where she's like, oh yeah, Gabler isn't a threat. Gabler like hasn't really done anything. If I send Gabler into fire making, like he's gonna be like nothing. Like that's not gonna be anywhere close to give him like the boost that he that he needs. So I think back to your question, I think when Jesse got voted out, I was more just like devastated. That's probably like one of the saddest I've ever been towards someone getting eliminated. And I do think I had the same reaction like to you when I got to the final three. I was like, oh, this is what's left.
This is what's left. And so I want to touch on this. Everyone tries to copy Jesse's gameplay because they consider him a great player, such as vote out your number one. But I perceive it as he lost at the end of the day, so if anything, do the opposite of what he did. I see what your point is. I would say that I disagree with that only because he was probably always going to have to do fire making, and even if Cody is still there and wins final immunity, I don't think Cody is going to just take Jesse to the end. I think that he would, much like Dom and Wendell, you're going to have to put this person to, have them do fire. So I don't buy that. I do agree, though, that, there's this perception that you have to vote out your number one in order to win, and we've seen other cases where that's not true. You could actually go to the end with your number one and still win the game. But I disagree. Do you guys have any other opinions with that, or would you say you agree?
I think Jesse. It's a game of timing, and I know people think he made a bad move voting out Cody at 6. I disagree. He had a punch ticket to Final Four. He had 2 opportunities at 4 with immunity and fire. He bet on himself and he lost, but I still think that he made the right call at Final 6 with taking out Cody. I think the specter of JT and Steven still looms very large in most players' brains, and no one wants to be the Steven at the end with the more charming, more out front guy at the end. And even if you were the strategic mastermind, people are just going to pick the guy who has, 10 out of 10 charisma versus you. So yeah. I think Jesse made the right call.
I also think Jesse made the right call. Even just like thinking through what happens if he doesn't do that. In that case, Cody probably gets his idol back. They vote out Carla at 6, and then Cody has a straight shot till Final Four. And assuming they vote out Cassidy at 4 or at 5, Cody probably has the most likely chance of winning that final immunity challenge. And in that case, I think Cody wins. I think Cody beats anyone at Final 6. So the idea of like people copying Jesse to like take out their number one, I feel like Jesse had a much better reasoning to voting out his number one than other people do. Like even in this most recent season, with Charlie voting out Maria, I don't even know if that was necessary because like Maria had burned so many bridges. But you guys could talk about that in 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
So if we want to rewind to the beginning of the season, I did feel like unlike 42, where I felt like the 42 pre-merge was a lot of fun. I even felt like the 41 pre-merge was a lot of fun because it's nostalgia. 43, I felt like the pre-merge dragged on. And yes, and the 26 days era of the show, pre-merge doesn't last long, but it lasted long enough for me to take a nap today because I got bored with a lot of the stuff that was going on. I haven't taken a nap since I think Ghost Island was the last season that I actually like, okay, I'm going to take a break from this because I really can't do it. And I woke up during Mergatory, and obviously we talked about how they've gotten rid of the Hourglass. They've gotten rid of Do or Die. They've gotten rid of a lot of the things that people were really against in 41 and 42. And they keep these they introduce these amulets-ish. And I really enjoyed that. I thought I froze. I really enjoyed that in 42. There's something about this season for me that, especially this being my second time, it just still hasn't resonated with me. And seasons like Vanuatu and Edge of Extinction were like that to me at first, and then I like really grew to love both, but specifically Vanuatu. So maybe if I watch 43 a couple more times, it'll start to hit home. Luke, we're 3 seasons into the new era of Survivor. Did you check out during the season? Were there long periods where like, okay, I really just don't want to watch this week, but I have to because of content? Or did you enjoy the ride?
No, I always enjoy the ride. I do think, this season it kind of spun its wheels a little in the pre-merge. I agree. There are some votes that are pretty obvious, like the NECA, the third episode where NECA goes out. That's happening 10 minutes into the episode. Like there is basically no question. And I think, and I think I liked this season more rewatching it. But I think part of the problem with the pre-merge is that a lot of the big characters are like all the fun is on Baka. Like there's not a lot of fun on the other two tribes. I mean, Cody keeps things Cody keeps things fun at Vessi. Coco, I guess it's sort of fun to watch Geo just implode. But by and large, most of the fun is on Baka, and they only go to tribal in the first episode. So I think that actually hurts the entertainment value of the pre-merge a little bit. I would have loved to have seen them go to a second tribal because I feel like any of the 5 of them could have gone, including Gabler, and he had an idol. So he could have found his way out of the game right there.
Well, and my 2 favorite moments from the pre-merge, one is when Gabler, Ellie, and Owen, I think, are sitting there, and Ellie's trying to like fish for if his idol is expired because she wants to go around making fake idols, and Gabler and Owen are this is very transparent of what's going on, and Ellie goes off and they had that conversation. Thought that was hilarious. And then the Lindsay self-implosion episode, it kind of came out of nowhere because we hadn't gotten much content from her, and we hadn't gotten much content in that episode. And then all of a sudden, it's just like Lindsay is super paranoid. And Lindsay's going to be super paranoid for the rest of the episode. And it kind of just, according to the player, or well, what we're seeing, it looks like they are caught off guard with how paranoid she is in the moment. Alex, are there any pre-merge moments, scenes, tribals that have stood out to you this time around?
I do agree that I think Baka has like a lot of the entertaining parts, and I do think a lot of this pre-merge, at least for me on this rewatch, was kind of just like, okay, this is the build up for moments that I know are going to come eventually. I don't know why, but I think my like favorite, really quick moment of the pre-merge is when they vote out Justine, not Janine, but Justine, right?
Yes, because she's Justin with an E.
And then right. And then in the next episode, Dwight is like upset with Jesse, and he's like, "So the island marriage is a little strained, and Jesse's gonna be sleeping on the couch tonight." I don't know why that was just really funny, but I did actually really like the Lindsay vote out, particularly because like in the few episodes before, because I was trying to pay attention to her, she like presents herself as this like really like strong, really capable person, and like I even got that from the first episode. I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna do some stuff.
Starting fires in her backyard,
yeah. Right? Like she's the one that like prepared the most. So when like the vote comes time for them to vote, and she's like, okay, wait, this is too easy. I'm beginning to like think some things up. I was like, I kind of get it from her perspective of like, I know how prepared I am for this game. So in my head, if I was these players, I would consider me a threat. So they're going to vote for me. Work around, but
I want to touch on this one. Also, Jesse would have lost my jury vote if he played someone's idol on themselves. Some moves feel icky and unnecessary. That isn't one of them, though. I don't feel like that's icky.
Wait, him playing Janine's idol on himself?
Yeah.
Idol,
oh,
right?
Wait.
Because he gets Cody's idol back during that episode. Like he gets Cody's because Cody gives him the idol. There's like the flashback where like Cody gives him the idol.
Yeah.
And then he uses that idol on Owen, I believe. And then Cody goes home. Whatever this comment is, though, I disagree, mainly because it's not. This isn't, and everyone knows my opinions on certain players that played in 19, 20, and 22. This isn't that. This is, I feel like this is a solid move. And the fact that he stands up and shakes Cody's hand, hey, we're going to be men about this. And for a second, when he lost fire making, I didn't think he was actually going to hug Cassidy. I'm like, wow, you really go. But he does. I don't think that's icky or unnecessary. Yeah. I feel like that's a flashy move, which Natalie and Tony have taught us are the only way to win the game, apparently. And so he does that in front of everyone. And I do feel like Cody still would have voted for Jesse at the end because they were boys and he did respect the game. Did y'all feel that was crossing a line?
It's all in the execution. I mean, that's, you could totally see Russell doing something like that. And when he's doing it, he would be like gloating and laughing at them. Jesse does it respectfully, stands up to shake Cody's hand. There's a world where I think that could be perceived as icky and gross, mostly if Russell did it. But the way Jesse pulled it off, I think, was perfectly within the bounds of the game, and I don't think anyone would hold it against him on this jury.
Yeah, I think based on, from what I remember, Jesse said something about like we're taking a look at the social contract and we're going to call people's bluffs, which is what Carla was saying like they were going to do. So I feel like that was more a move against Carla than it was against Cody, because Jesse could have just not played Cody's idol and then still voted Cody out. The vote still would have gone that way. But I think it was just that it's that extra cherry on top that makes that move like so really cool to watch.
Question: if you could give a subtitle to this season, what would it be? I, for one, really miss the subtitles. That's hard because you can't really any subtitle that we give you would just be a joke. Like we can say, "Oh, Gabon 2 Electric Boogaloo" or something like that. But like, there's really nothing that you could pigeonhole a lot of these people into. They're still in Fiji, so you can't even go that route. I think that the numbered titles are going to stay until 50. Whatever that theme ends up being, they'll put a title there for that. But I can't think of a single subtitle that I could label this season for.
I will say I did see a Reddit post that like really funnily made subtitles for each of the seasons. I think 41 was like too many advantages. Like 42 was like too many but slightly less advantages, and then 43 was like you'll love a lot of people on the jury.
Okay, all right. So that's the answer right there. Luke, did you have anything?
That's all I got.
Yeah, Survivor 43, best final three ever.
Yeah.
Spoil it right there. Yeah.
Okay, are we? Dwight is one of the worst players to ever be on my screen.
Oh my god!
No one got through a second chance, so that's fine.
I can't imagine having that strong of an opinion on Dwight.
I know that's like
that's so weird.
What's wrong with Dwight?
There was nothing wrong with Dwight. All right. So anyway, as we navigate throughout this game, it becomes very apparent that it's going to be the Jesse show, and this is the Jesse segment of this. Jesse, and we've talked a lot about Jesse the last few days. When we get to the end, I'm going to ask, who do you think should be on 50? And a lot of people have said, this person, this person, this person, but they're probably going to get voted out first. The problem with that logic, and we've all talked through it, is because 50 probably is going to be a lot of those types of players. Someone like, and we brought this up yesterday, someone like Omer could last longer in a game because there is someone like Jesse there. I feel like if you were to go into a game and you had to play against both of them, I feel like more people would keep Omer around than Jesse. But that's jumping ahead too much to the end of this. What were y'all's thoughts on Jesse, hopefully 1.0? Do you feel like he is the game player of 41 through 46? Or would you put other people above him, just for you personally?
I mean, I've seen other people make arguments for like Carson or like D to be above him as far as far as like player quality, but I think Jesse played, I don't want to say like the most perfect game, because that like any player's game could be like criticized, but I feel like he played the game with the least mistakes. Like he was on the right side of the vote every time. He was able to flip-flop and people were still trusting him up until he made the biggest move of the season to vote out as number one. And then it was only at that point that people were like, okay, wait, hold on. This guy's like been playing the best game of the season. We got to get him out. So in my opinion, especially because I have some lesser opinions on the seasons following 43, I do think Jesse still holds the title of best player of the new era. But yeah.
Luke?
Yeah, I'd put him up there with D, I'm gonna have to watch your 45 thing to see your hot takes.
I love D. I rolled my eyes at Carson. I rolled my eyes at Carson. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh,
No, I love
we,
D. Yeah, D's great.
we got a D hater here. I was like,
No, I love D.
yeah, I think I personally, one of the things I value in the game, just as like theoretically who I would vote for, is control. And I think if we're looking at people who controlled votes, in 43, definitely Jesse. In the new era, I mean, D1, so I got to give the edge to her as number one. But I would put Jesse as a pretty solid number two best new era player. And he's someone who I think you could plop him into almost any season in any era. And I think he's at least making the merge. I don't know. He's got a very good strategic mind. He's very personable, but he's not super out front. He's not like a huge personality that's gonna like annoy people or dominate, the island. So yeah, I think Jesse's a great player, top two new era for sure.
Yeah, and I was trying to compare him to in my head today to Omer, and I feel like Omer pre-merge was very down here, and it wasn't until around mid-merge that he's really started to be out in the open, and that's when he got clocked at 6. And I feel like Jesse got like clocked at 5, and then he plays he plays the idol that is in his possession, his idol. He plays his idol, and then at Final Four, he loses. But I do feel like Jesse's one of these characters that, how do I want to phrase this? They're both good game players and good characters. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time we get either the coach, who is just a fun character, gameplay-wise, okay. We get game players who don't always come off as the best characters, and then we get our happy medium of something like Tony in Winners at War, or Jesse. Yes, he was very mild-mannered, but I felt like that's what made him so compelling, because one, we have his story, but two, when he's sitting there talking, and he does have his vulnerable moments, especially after he loses Final Four, the Final Four challenge, I feel like it really made him relatable, and I think that brings up the broader thing of this, because I understand that there are a section of people that hate the sob story aspect of the new era. For me, I gave it a big pass for 41 and 42 because those people had just come out of COVID. They had a lot of PTSD and a lot of stuff that they needed to talk about, and I understood it. 43 on, I thought I was going to grow tired of it. I still enjoy it. I like being able to know what makes these people tick, and why they are doing the things that they do. And I think that it's an editing trick on production's part. It's like, okay, we don't want you to actually hate these people, even if they are villains. So we're going to make you feel for them so that you understand why they are doing ABC, all that. Luke, do you enjoy the storytelling of these players? What happened? Oh God, did I freeze? Okay. The storytelling of these players, learn their backstories. Are you good with it after 41, 42?
Yeah, so I think the show got the balance right in 44 and 45 and 46. Like, it's gotten progressively better. Like, I don't think anyone really has an issue with the sob stories now in 46, but watching this season, I was like, as 41 and 42 were airing, I was like a sob story defender. I was like, we've all been through COVID, like exactly what you said. I like the sweeter, gentler side of Survivor, but coming back to Survivor coming back to this season, and it is just backstory package after backstory package after backstory package. It was like Ryan as the first confessional this season, instantly like sob story. There are people who get them who now would never get them, like Gio, Ryan, Janine, like every like minor character gets one. I was like flabbergasted. It was just like boom, boom, boom. Ellie gets 2. It's insane. I'm glad they kind of moved out of this moving forward.
Alex, do you think that they have changed it? Do you think it's a more even balance past 43?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm trying to remember like the difference between like 41, 42, and then like onwards, because usually I like tune them out. I'm gonna be like so honest. There's a couple that like that stick with me, and I honestly do think that Jesse's was one of them, because I feel like when I was like talking about the show with my friends when it was live, before Jesse was like the strategic mastermind, we would just refer to him as like, you know, the guy that was in the gang one time. That was, I wouldn't have known if they didn't give him like a sob story. But I don't like it when it feels like they're trying to like force the sob story in, like somebody wins a reward challenge and they're like, this was a really uplifting moment for me because in my childhood I was bullied. And it's like, what? How does that matter? Like, respect, but like, what are we doing?
Well, then go ahead, Luke.
Oh, they just like really overdo it this season to the point where I actually like enjoyed watching it because like it was like funny. I mean, you know, what's like the music comes in, the like sad, like somber piano, and it's like, we're talking about Gio. I'm sorry, but he is like the 17th most popular player on this season. No offense to Gio. I love Gio, but like we're really just handing out like sad piano music to anyone in this season, and I'm glad they kind of saved that in 44 for the bigger characters or the people who had, you know, like really interesting or tragic things happen in their past, and not just throw them out to everyone.
Well, and ironically, when they did Jonathan's backstory yesterday during 42, and his backstory to me, and I called it abuse yesterday, and it was, you know, oh yeah, my dad used to wake us up at 3:00 in the morning, and I know I was 3 years old, and we had to walk up a hill, and whoever lost had to do it 3 more times, and they had this inspirational music for that one, and it's like, okay, I feel like you're once again, just read the room, Survivor, and then there are other players. I think Xander is an example. He's like, oh yeah, I was was it Xander or was it somebody from yesterday? I was a fat kid, and then I wasn't a fat kid. It's like, cool, neat.
JD's like, do you remember JD's from a few days ago?
Yeah, I was in the band and I had braces.
Glasses.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Okay.
Wow, what a sob story.
Hey, I'm ready to go. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's so compelling. So I do agree with both of you. You know, 41 and 42 I got. I didn't hate the fact that they continued it, but I do think that they basically took the spot of all the advantages with just we get all the backstories instead of all the advantages. And I think that what you said is correct, that 44 onwards, they do kind of level it out where we're not getting backstories for every single player. And I do appreciate that. The other part of this era that people felt like was going to go away after 42 was the 26 days. I'm not a 26 days defender. It doesn't bother me that they are still doing it, if that makes sense. Do you? And obviously I know, you know, budgets and all that. Do you feel like 26 days as a whole, from 41 through 46, does it hinder y'all's watching experience? Because for me, it doesn't.
No. I don't feel like we really, as the audience, notice a difference. I don't know. I still feel like we get good strategy, good character stuff. Do I wish it was 39 days or even 30 days? Yeah, but I'm completely at peace with 26 days, and it is not something I really care about or even notice at this point.
Yeah. Alex?
Okay, well, the most recent 39-day season I've seen is Kageon. I haven't seen anything like after that until 41. So I don't have like the full idea of, okay, this is what a like super modern Survivor season is like on 39 days. I just have like, this is what it's like on 26 days. And like, I don't really see a difference. Like maybe you could make the argument for like, oh, the bonds that people have aren't going to be super duper strong, or at least as strong as they would be on 39 days. But like, I don't know. You see these people like
I mean,
crying when people get voted out.
Uncle Xander, or whatever, talking about his kids. So like,
Jesse and
Yeah.
Cody were pretty bonded, you know.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
I think we're getting the kind of the same thing.
Right.
Next season we're going to get a showmance, like, and they I think are still together. So like, I don't think that the 26 days hinders it. I think that it's one of these things that fans, they just kind of, it's one of those it's the hive mind thing where people feel like, well, we have to say it's 26. I don't want to point out why I actually don't like the show now. So I'll say that it's because it's 26 days and things like that. Just say how you actually feel. Question. I remember hearing about Jeff saying he doesn't want any more villains on the show. How do you feel about that? I think that interview was taken out of context. I don't think that Jeff was saying he didn't want villains. I think he was saying he doesn't want people like Ben Browning or Shannon from Nicaragua or Russell Hantz. I don't think that and because soon as that season happened, or as soon as he said that, we got 46, where we did have villains. We had villains on 46. And you know what happened when we got villains on 46? People on the internet got pissed off at them on the show. It's like, well, I thought you guys wanted villains. You can't. You're picking and choosing now, because if you don't like this person as the TV villain, why were y'all complaining about it 2 weeks ago when Jeff said, I don't want villains, which is not what he said. So how do I feel about it? I agree with him, because I don't want Ben Browning or Shannon back either.
Yeah. It was 100% like, taken out of context for headlines. And if you go back, I think it was like on his podcast, right, that he mentioned that. And he specifically said, we would cast Parvati and Boston Rob now in a heartbeat if they were applying. We would not cast Russell because he's an a-hole. And that's what they don't want. They don't want Russell and lower, and I think that is a perfectly fine threshold to have, especially in the social media age when people lose their mind. People are still mad at Carla and Jesse for not voting for Cassidy. I mean, the show's also invested now more than ever, I think, in taking care of the players' mental health after the game. And they just want to minimize people getting abused online by jerks on Twitter and Reddit and everywhere else,
Yeah. Do either of you guys know, did that interview happen after 46 had finished filming?
It had to have, because it was on Jeff's podcast, I think, the week before 46 started airing. So
So then my theory is that like they went through all of 46, and then Maria did the thing that everyone's talking about, and I feel like in that moment, after that happened, Jeff was like, there's no way we're gonna like spin this so she looks good, especially with Charlie being like completely devastated afterwards. And I think he anticipated that like she was going to get seen as a villain like that. And even with Venus, with apparently what happened with like Ponderosa, people like just didn't like her. So if she's seen as a villain, then like other people are going to bully her online. So I think that was Jeff's way of saying like, we're not going to cast people that are going to increase their odds of getting harassment online or anything like that. But I will also make the argument that there is a villain in every season. Like in 44, like the most kumbaya season like I've ever seen, the entire time I was like, I like Danny because I think he's like very like sneaky, very conniving.
I think 45 is pretty kumbaya too. But
Katura, Bruce,
I'm just like, you're gonna, people are like, they don't cast villains anymore, and I'm like, there are plenty of new era villains. I mean, Q and Venus from 46. I think D's pretty cutthroat. I mean, what is the definition of villain? If the definition of villain is Ben Browning, then yeah, villains are gone. If the definition of villain is someone who's going to play cutthroat and make snarky confessionals, that was my understanding of what a villain is in the context of Survivor, then yeah, villains have always been here and always will be.
Yeah, there are in this era that you can compare to 9 out of the 10 people that were on the villains tribe in Heroes versus Villains. And the one person that you can't compare them to, they wouldn't cast anymore anyway. So it doesn't. It's once again, and I know that I know I come on here a lot and like call out them because they are turning into Star Wars fans, but it's true. It's so bothersome that they continue to latch on to things that are either taken out of context or things that don't actually matter. All right, Survivor's never going to just cast 18 of the most likable people you've ever seen on your show because that doesn't make for compelling television. In Winners at War, they had to portray people as negative just because Tony's going to win and everyone in his alliance is, we can't portray any of them like this. Oh, we've got Wendell. We can make him look like a jerk. We can, make Ben's moment with Sarah seem more, passion than it really is. Ben's quitting because he doesn't want to have to deal with sitting against people that are sitting and have been yelled at by everyone. I don't buy into this. I think it's a flawed logic, but whatever. We're starting to wrap up. I'm sorry. Like
it's okay. Deep breaths.
At this point, I've gone on this tangent for the last 3 or 4 days, and I'm so tired of talking about it.
We stopped talking about 43 at this point. So
I know. I do want to touch on the backlash that the season. Once again, we're not gonna go down the political route of this, but a lot of I'm not the biggest Gabler person outside the show, but here it seems like people once again they only voted for him because of the whole military thing. It's like the whole military thing didn't happen until after he had won and he said it while they're sitting there. But they kind of just removed that from their brains. Oh, they only voted for him because they were bitter towards Cassidy and Owen. It's like, once again, I feel like you guys just used this word bitter when you don't have another word to use, because nothing that I'm seeing in Final Tribal shows me that these people are overly pissed. This is not Vanuatu. This is not Fiji. This is not All Stars or anything like that. This is Survivor 43, and they're all fairly wholesome with their questions, and they don't even really attack any of them, even Owen. Why do you think that this season this winner in particular has gotten so much backlash to the point, and I know I started this asking a similar question, but to me, as just a Survivor fan who I try to remove people are outside of the game, Gabler was not hateable at all. I felt like he was a very rootable character, either because he's funny or because he's an underdog or what have you. Why do you think there was such an uproar about this one?
I think like the show in the new era is more interested in telling the story of the season overall rather than just the winner's story. I think, a lot of seasons focus largely on the journey of the winner, and that is not the case for most new era seasons. Look at 41, 42, and 43. The winner is largely not the main character. So I think the backlash was because they portrayed Gabler as he was, like a kooky guy who, survived all the big threats taking each other out and was the best option left at the end. They could have edited Gabler as like some strategic mastermind, but I don't think the show's interested now in really lying about the winner and like trying to pump them up to be a bigger player and person than they really were. So for me, I think that's why. And maybe
Alex,
I do think the two big things are like, one, the edit that Gabler did get, because I don't know what happened in the editing room for this season. I don't know if they just didn't get a lot of good shots of Gabler playing the game or whatever, or they thought other people were making moves, but it really did feel like they edited the season one way. Yeah, I don't know. And then they edited the entire season one way, and then once it got to Final Tribal Council, they brought in a completely new editor and the stock just like completely shifts on his game, and I think it sort of caused a little bit of like whiplash like to the general audience. And the other big thing is, I think, the fact that he was up against Cassidy, who, let's go back to the edit, was like in the forefront a lot of times. Her name was being brought up a lot of the times, and I feel like generally a good amount of audiences will root for like the young woman who's like the badass of the season or something like that. So when she loses to like this old guy who's portrayed as like the kook the entire time, and it doesn't really spend a lot of time being like, okay, these are the alliances I was in. These were the people I talked to make sure I survived this vote. These are like the reasons that people didn't give me a vote. It comes off badly, I guess, to them, or it leaves like a bad taste in their mouth of like, our fan favorite lost to like this dude.
Well, and it's clear too that like they very clearly, like, Survivor production thought Jesse should have won this season. Like, I can just imagine them, like the production team at Final Six, and they're like, okay, Jesse's gonna win, and if Jesse doesn't win, Cody's gonna win, and if Cody doesn't win, Carla's gonna win, and we can live with that result. And then they probably get to Final Three, and they're like, okay, well, Cassidy's gonna win, and we can edit that into, we can do something with that. And then Gabler wins, and it's like, to be a fly on the wall, like behind the scenes when Gabler won, I would kill to see how they reacted, because even in the preview for 44, that aired during the finale, they basically like imply that like that 43 sucked, and they're like, hey, stay tuned because next season's going to be great and it'll be really fun and exciting, and we promise, please keep watching. Like, you can tell it's almost like desperate. They're like, don't leave, like next season's good. So
and it was,
it was,
and it was.
Give us another chance. Next season we'll show double the amount of confessionals for the winner. It'll be better.
I just think this is why we have 2 seasons a year. Sometimes you get a winner that doesn't resonate and that wasn't great. It happens occasionally.
It happens.
That's why we have 2 seasons a year.
Alex, final thoughts on Survivor 43.
Okay, I think the one thing I like didn't mention that I think really helped the season like traject upwards for me was because, like I told you before, like in the back of my mind from the beginning of the season, I was like, oh yeah, Gabler's got this, just you guys wait, like kind of as a joke, and then it started becoming more and more serious throughout the season. I think at that point, when I was like still relatively new to like Survivor terminology, I was aware of what a decoy winner is, or was. And so I think once Jesse started gaining like more and more momentum, like very slowly, I was like, oh, okay, so Cody's going to be the decoy winner, and then like Jesse's going to be the actual winner. Okay, I think I figured this out. And then Cody gets voted out. I was like, oh, boom, proves it right there. And then Jesse gets eliminated. I'm like, wait a minute, who's left? And then it's Gabler, and I feel like Cody was the decoy winner to Jesse, who was the decoy winner to Gabler. And like it's this like
a big brain this.
No. But I don't. I mean, if they did it on purpose, like good for them. Even if they didn't, like that's the way like it was viewed in my head, and it kind of just wrapped the season up in a nice way for me. And while this might piss some people off, I like have all the seasons ranked, and I think I have like 21 or so seasons that I've ranked. Watch, 43 is 4th on my list.
Oh boy,
I love it.
The only seasons that are higher are, I think, Kageon, Exile, and Pearl Islands, and that's it.
So you have this above Heroes vs. Villains. All right, I'm not going to.
I haven't watched Heroes vs. Villains. I'll let you know.
All right. Thank God. Luke, final thoughts on Survivor 43.
I'm so glad I chose this season to rewatch for this, because it was so much fun. Honestly, same, 43 shot up my rankings rewatching this. I like it more than 44, 45, 41. It's at least middle of the pack. It's super fun, and I don't know, even if you don't like the winner, you got to think about the journey. And what's not to like? There's a lot of really, really fun strategy. There's I think, one of the best casts of the new era, maybe second only to 46. And I don't know, it's super fun. And I don't know, it was great.
So I'm gonna disagree with both of you. I mean, I don't hate the season, obviously, but I do think through 3 seasons of the 40s it is my least favorite, and it's nothing like actually wrong with it. I'm gonna give it a 3.75 out of 5. It's gonna end up at number 20. It's gonna end up at number 26 on my list. It's gonna be in between Survivor 41 and Game Changers. The DVD question, I would say that yes, either the final 6 or you switch someone out with Noel.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I could see you switching out Owen for Noel.
Okay,
honestly.
Yeah.
And then final question, Alex, if you had to pick 2 people from the season to come back for 50, who would it be?
Okay. I think they're gonna bring back Cassidy. Just because the fan base for her is like massive, and she's already been on Challenge USA, so like she already has the like extra TV experience that she might need. And like, I mean, it's got to be either Jesse or Cody, right, to bring back the 50.
This is your personal opinion. This is.
I'm okay. That was my personal opinion, and then I said it as if like I need you to agree with me. So yeah, it's Cassidy, and then either Jesse or Cody, whoever they're able to get.
Luke.
Well, Jesse's like the biggest Survivor 50 lock of all time. So I'll go with him. I think he'll still have gas in the tank, and I think he's pretty likely to do well. My second one, I would go with Owen. I think I'd like to see him with the experience of having played the game. I do think that we could have like a good strategic run from Owen, and I thought he was a really fun narrator on the show, and I would love to see Owen back.
For me, yes, Jesse's a lock. I would say outside of Jesse, probably Carla. I know that, as the merge hit, her character did kind of fizzle a little bit, but she was still looked at as a threat at that final 6, which means that obviously we're not seeing everything, but if they're saying it, then that means it's probably true. It's the Alexis Jones effect of everyone saying that it's Alexis, that she's the biggest threat. We're not seeing it, but it's still there. I think Carla kind of falls into that category post-merge as far as we don't see all of it, but we're still being told it. So Jesse, Carla, both of y'all, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This has been a lot more fun than I thought it would be, like the season. But I knew this was going to be fun. Luke, it was great to link up with you again for the first time in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you for coming on for Palau and this. Luke, what do you have going on in your channel in the near future?
Well, I took the week off, but I'll have some really fun videos coming up the next few weeks. I'm doing best boot orders and worst boot orders, so little sneak peek exclusive right here.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll just keep chugging along every Sunday around 10 or 11 Pacific time. New video.
Oh, shoot, it's 10 o'clock. Oh, that means Game of Thrones is done. Perfect. I can go off and go watch that. But thank you all. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Y'all, we've got 3 days left, and then I won't have to watch Survivor again until September. So that'll be fun. We will see you guys on the other side.
Thank you.